I have no house of my own. I'm a renter. I have no kids, no relationship, no impressive career accolades, no big fancy job with salary. I mean, I do have a mediocre salary and a regular job, but nothing to write home about.
Now we're going to talk about something that has been on my mind for a while, and that's the overwhelming feeling of failure in today's day and age for younger generations. Something that I've talked about briefly on the channel and I've spoken about in other videos, but it does feel more self-evident because it's so easy to find videos like this of people complaining and saying that their life has no purpose, they have no meaning, and that ultimately they feel like a failure. And it's not entirely their fault. Sometimes you have to dig deeper and see that they were already set up to fail. And we're going to discuss it in today's video. And we're going to react to a video as well. We're going to leave their video and channel down below in the description as well if you guys want to go and check their channel out as well. With that being said, let's dive into it.
Maybe it's time to admit some things to myself. I'm 34. I have no house of my own. I'm a renter. I have no kids, no relationship, no impressive career accolades, no big fancy job with salary. I mean, I do have a mediocre salary and a regular job, but nothing to write home about in society's eyes. I have very little cash flow or savings. Very little ambition to do things.
I was in the same boat as well at his age, right? So sometimes you just have to overcome that, but it's really difficult.
You know, I'm 34 years old. I took 7 years to get a bachelor's. I have no kids, no relationships. You know, I have some friends, but...
And it's really hard to build relationships when you don't have a proper income, when you're renting. You know, it's hard because you want to build a life with someone, but sometimes the older you are when you're dating, people want to date someone who already has their life together. When you're at that age 34, while it's not that old, it does send, you know, alarm bells to some women, which is unfortunate, but that's just the way people are designed.
I've watched a lot of my peers hit milestones in their life while I've either stayed the same or gone backwards. But is any of that even true? See, a lot of the things about my life might be seen as disappointments, failures. I'm behind. I should refocus and really work on getting those things, attaining those things. And I have felt bad about not attaining these things, right? I've felt bad about, you know, just the fact that my father's dead now, but my mom and like my father will never know my kids if I have any. My parents are getting older, right? My mom's getting older. I need to hurry up and have grandkids so that they can do all that. All these external pressures that we put on ourselves to...
We don't need to put these pressures on ourselves ultimately. It's on us to do that, but again, it's also external from society pressuring everyone as well.
Live life the right way, I guess, is what we're calling it, right? The societal norms and rules that we all just blindly agree to. And I'm not saying that those are bad things inherently. I mean, just depends what you're here for. And here's the thing. I've explained all the apparent shortcomings of my life. And honestly, it's almost as if all these markers that would make me seem a disappointment or a failure are actually the things that I feel liberated by. And I just don't see it the same way. Am I a failure because, I had a lot of guilt and I felt like I had high expectations on my life, which...
You shouldn't have those expectations. If you're a Gen Z or millennial, you need to shake off that. It's bullshit, okay? We have a way harder go at life than the older generations like the boomers and even Gen X. Well, I'm not saying that they haven't had their struggles either, but life was just a little easier in general. I mean, it's easy in some ways because of technology now, but ultimately technology is taking away people's purpose and taking away people's jobs.
In turn gave me a lot of guilt about wanting to go my own way and do things my own way. And my father was an executive, like, of a big company. And, he was never overly pushy or... I had expectations. There was an expectation for me to be successful. He used to tell me, like, you will be successful. It's not even an option. Like...
That sounds like pressure, unfortunately.
But I never could deny, like, I would go through the motions, but I would do everything bare minimum. I'd be going through the motions, but doing everything bare minimum. Going through college, going through any formal structures, I would just do bare minimum because I couldn't bring myself to fully buy in. I just couldn't. I just looked at this world too differently. It didn't make sense to me to put on a suit and fight traffic both ways every day to a job that I didn't want to do. And I don't think that makes me crazy.
It's also a drive thing, right? Because if you really think about it, the road ahead, like the path that was paved for earlier generations, made sense because if you got a normal job, you can afford a normal life, and it wasn't too difficult to find normal jobs. But now it feels like you need 3 or 4 side hustles to make ends meet, and then on top of that, if you're doing all of this, how do you have the time to build real relationships with people?
In fact, I think it's the opposite, right? But here's what we have to realize, and call it coping, call it whatever you want, but failure and disappointment and all of these measuring sticks we have are not objective properties of reality. They are judgments generated by human-made rule sets, okay? It's a very big distinction. Most measures of success are artificial. They have to do with timelines and milestones and social scripts like career and money, productivity, longevity. These measurements feel real. They hurt real. They control real behavior, but they're all constructed, not intrinsic. So when someone calls themselves a failure, like me, what I really mean is I failed to conform to a rule system that I did not consciously choose. That's not metaphysics. It's just an accurate accounting of my life. And this is why disappointment is not even fundamentally real, if we want to strip everything down to what I consider truth, right? Like, a rock can't be a failure. A tree cannot be a disappointment. So for a human to be a failure, we need a goal, a timeline, and some sort of comparison standard. And all 3 of these things come from culture, not from nature. Nature only cares whether a thing exists. It doesn't issue verdicts about our ontology we've put on top of consciousness. I'm not saying that nothing matters, but I'm just saying some of the worst parts of our reality are optional.
Are optional. Yeah, it doesn't feel very optional, you know, especially when you have bills to pay. But hey, that's just the way I see it. Sucks.
Making an argument for selective seriousness. We can keep the compassion, we can keep the responsibility that, you know, for harm and not harming others and immediate consequences, right? Like jumping off a cliff. Release the shame-based identities, the borrowed expectations that we have from everybody, these invisible goalposts that we keep putting on things, narratives that exist mainly just to control behavior. And why I don't think this is just escapism or coping. It's not just to throw away or avoid accountability in our lives. Pain is real. Consequences are real. Suffering is real. But moral worth, life value, identity as a success or a failure, these are not consequences. These are interpretations. Letting go of false rules doesn't remove our responsibility. It just removes the unnecessary self-punishment that we constantly do. You can't actually be a failure. You can only fail at rules someone invented, often without your consent. Nature doesn't measure you, only people do, and most of those measurements were never meant to help you live. Disappointment isn't.
It's actually funny because I've heard this statement before and it always sounded ridiculous, but it does definitely resonate to be true now when people say, I never asked to be born. Essentially, that's true. You never asked to be born. You were just born into this inherited life that we have now. And this life has structures that you might not agree with.
A fact of reality. It's a social technology. Just to make sure that I'm not being misunderstood. I'm not rejecting effort. I'm not rejecting growth. I'm not rejecting meaning of this world. I'm rejecting being trapped inside an unconscious rule system that defines your worth. There's a distinction there. A lot of the suffering of life comes because people believe they're losing a game that they didn't even agree to play, right? Letting go of these rules isn't quitting life. It's changing the rules we measure ourselves by. And it's a liberating thing. So, you know, I'm not saying any of this information will change your life overnight or anything, but sit with some of this information, okay? We need to realize there are constructed parts of our reality that are there as roadblocks to make it harder and to fit you in a box, okay? Work on trying to notice whenever you start feeling those flutters of anxiety or fear or insecurity bubble up in your chest. Notice that rise and that change in your chest and watch yourself attach a story, a narrative to that feeling and run away with it in your head, right? It could be about anything. It could be about being a disappointment to your parents, about why doesn't that person like me, or ooh, they betrayed, like whatever the narrative is that you're attaching to these feelings, just reverse engineer them and see where they're coming from. Are they coming from a fabricated rule set from society, or is it even something that you need to concern yourself with? I don't know. Just trying to unwire a lot of that unconscious programming that we have that just simply makes things a little bit harder for us. That's all I'm trying to do, is just spread a little bit of awareness so that we can respond rather than just react to the life that's happening around us. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.
Great video, honestly, interesting thoughts, and it does resonate with me, not necessarily because I'm close to age, but because I think what he's saying is true. We have these definitions of what it means to be a failure and how to be successful in this life that no one really asked to be born into, but we fell into this system. So I want your thoughts about this video down below in the comment section. Also, go check out his channel as well. I'll leave it in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.